Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And as always, we have a lot to get to on the program. We're going to start with some viewer comments from yesterday after the program or from early this morning. Also, a little bit later on, we're going to hear from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. He spoke out about chips as the Highway Department members visited Albany yesterday, so we're going to hear from him a little bit later on. I want to remind you that on tomorrow's program, we're going to be talking with Senator Tom O'Mara. So if you have any questions for Senator O'Mara, I'd love to hear from you. Okay, first off, yesterday we had a great conversation with John Buren, the majority leader of the Chemung County Legislature, about solar panels and solar battery storage facilities. This viewer says, one of the world's tech giants said solar is 38% efficient and will not get better. We have methods now of generating power far more efficiently. That's a very good point. We also have some New York State issues that we're going to get to kind of in line with what that viewer said. Another viewer says, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. They were watching the program a little bit after the fact. They recorded it. And they said, I must share the disgust, or let me try this again. And I must say I share the disgust, as so many others do, after last night's speech. First of all, Al Green is a clown and is irrelevant, so he tries his best to become so. But more importantly, the lack of respect and empathy and plain decency was on full display. And anyone who doesn't see the Democrats for what they are never will. If you can't stand or clap for a young boy battling cancer, there's something seriously wrong with you. It is what they are. Only hate for the president and for the republic. Absolutely shameful. And unfortunately, that anger and hate towards the president and that disrespectful, really despicable nature continued yesterday. And we're going to talk about it later on in the program. I don't know if you saw what Rachel Maddow and others were saying about that young boy with cancer. So blinded by hate at this point for Trump. So I understand this viewer's sentiment, just the pure anger that comes from the other side. We have a really interesting piece from the New York Post written by a Democrat who was embarrassed of the display. So we do have a few things here about the speech at the joint sessions of Congress a little bit later on. I don't want to go into it too much because it is a few days old, but still worth mentioning. And to that viewer's point about Al Green, yeah, that a lot of people said they couldn't believe it. But if you know about Al Green, it doesn't really come as a surprise. He's been like this for a long time. He, I think, had already introduced articles of impeachment on Trump 3 times so far, and it's in just March. But yeah, there was a lot of people trying to be relevant, trying to make a name for themselves on TikTok or on Instagram with those pictures showing their supporters that they care the most, that they hate Trump the absolute most. I think it fell very flat. I think most people saw it for what it is, a clown show, an embarrassment, that the protests and the taking of photos, the paddles, all of that was just bluster, just trying to, again, get the most likes, maybe sell some merchandise off of it. Comment from a different viewer. Hi, Frank. Well, hi. Saw on Fox that several mayors of so-called sanctuary cities are going to give the president a hard time. So this makes me wonder if they can be held liable for, 1, harboring a criminal, and 2, if they can be held accountable for any crime that an illegal alien might commit. I realize you are not a lawyer, but would you happen to know anything about this? Well, let me piggyback that off of what Mark said this morning. Mark said, good morning. I see the Democrat mayors of sanctuary cities are facing prosecution for not releasing illegals. Yes, those two tie in perfectly. But if you remember, Tom Homan said that, and I'm not a lawyer, you're right, but Tom Homan said that very early on, that he is going to look into ways that certain government entities can be charged if there are sanctuary cities for harboring illegal aliens. So to your point, yes, that is at the very least being looked at. All right, so breaking yesterday, Trump did announce a 1-month delay of the tariffs for cars. This is just for cars coming from Canada and Mexico. That's according to White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt. Quote, we spoke with the big three auto dealers. We're going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd, but at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month, so they are not at an economic disadvantage. The carve-out was granted for Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. I'm not familiar with the last. I'm sure there's people laughing at me right now. Following a meeting between Trump and executives at the automakers. The announcement helped the stock market gain back some of its losses for the first 2 days of the trading week, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing up more than 485 points, the NASDAQ gaining 267 points, and the S&P 500 improving by more than 64 points. At 12 a.m. Tuesday, the Trump administration implemented 25% across-the-board tariffs on Canada and Mexico. As you know, this is in relationship to not doing enough and cracking down on fentanyl smuggling. Canada's energy is subject to a lower tariff rate of 10%. Both countries are eyeing retaliatory tariffs in response. Trump's sweeping tariffs impact the three largest trading partners of the U.S., meaning Canada, Mexico, and China, totaling at least $1.5 trillion in annual imports. So that is a quick update that Trump announces 1-month delay of the U.S. tariffs for cars from Canada and Mexico. We're going to talk a little bit more about tariffs perhaps later on. We've got a lot to cover. I do have some updates on corrections officers strike. Still a lot unknown. I know we've heard from a lot of different people lately on this, and I've had great conversations. I had a great conversation yesterday about this from so many different perspectives. So we're going to be talking about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Hey, we got a good morning. Good morning to you. We're kind of, oh, there it is, virtual wave. Good morning in a virtual wave. Thank you very much. I don't know. There's a couple things here early on in the program I'm not sure how to segue to, so bear with me. But we've been talking about the astronauts trapped on the International Space Station for quite some time. And the reason we talked about it is there seemed to be so much politics involved because, heaven forbid, the Biden administration and then Harris didn't want anything to happen if they were to rescue these astronauts. So for political reasons, they were stranded. We learn even more so now about the political implications of this. Elon Musk's claim that the Biden administration rejected his help with SpaceX. One of the NASA astronauts that are trapped on the International Space Station says he believes what Elon Musk said. Barry Wilmore, better known as Butch, made the comment during an in-orbit press conference with fellow castaway Sunita Williams 9 months after their Boeing Starliner capsule malfunctioned and left the pair stuck there. 9 months. What was it supposed to be? Almost like a 3-hour tour, to quote Gilligan's Island. I think they were supposed to be there, just a couple days? So one of the questions, they asked about Musk's recent claim that Joe Biden had intentionally stalled their rescue for, quote, political reasons. Wilmore denied that politics had anything to do with the team's delayed departure, but he seemed to kind of shift his stance when that question was asked. So earlier on, he was kind of, no politics. Well, he said, I can only say that Mr. Musk, what he says is absolutely factual. I believe him. So think of that. For political reasons, these people have been stranded for 9 months, even though they were only supposed to be there, I believe, a few days. Musk, who we know supported Donald Trump's presidential campaign, told Sean Hannity that working with him to bring the astronauts back, meaning Biden, working with Biden to bring the astronauts back, would make Trump, quote, look good. And Biden didn't want the publicity so close to the presidential election. Although Wilmore says he trusts Musk, he added that he and Williams knew nothing about the behind closed doors discussions. Quote, we have no information on that, though, whatsoever. What was offered, what was not offered, who it was offered to, how the process went. That's information that we simply don't have. Wilmore also voiced his support for both the new president and the world's richest man. He said, quote, all of us have the utmost respect for Mr. Musk and obviously respect and admiration for our president of the United States, Donald Trump. We appreciate them. We appreciate all that they do for us, for human space flight, for our nation. The comment came 2 weeks before Wilmore and Williams' belated return to Earth. So, kind of just an interesting case that we've been, or an interesting story that we've been covering for quite some time. We knew there was politics involved. Unfortunately, these people had to suffer because of that. Biden did not want Trump to look good if Musk were to rescue these stranded astronauts who have been stuck there for 9 months when it was only supposed to. And again, I don't know why the article doesn't say, but I think it was only supposed to be for a few days that they were on that station. You've seen the pictures. It's confusing how they have someone interviewing them. How does that guy get there and leave when those two don't? I don't understand space travel. I'll be the first to admit that. It's already time for first break. Where does the time go? We've got a lot of announcements coming up later on in the program. A lot of topics to cover from New York State to the federal level. A couple, not a ton of updates on Doge, but a very interesting update on Doge we'll get to a little bit later on as well. So keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. We're just getting started on this morning's edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Welcome to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world with over 50 teas and a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Come in and try our must-try Nikujaga Japanese beef stew or Penang curry tofu specialties today.
It's time to say not so fast chronic kidney disease. Because with a progressive disease like CKD, slow is good. And believe me, I know all about slow. That's why I'm here to tell you about Jardiance. It's a little pill proven to slow the progression of CKD and reduce the risk of kidney failure, which can lead to dialysis.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
So go on, say not so fast CKD. Ask your doctor about Jardiance for chronic.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security, located in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Marcus Streets looking very beautiful this morning as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Morning. Well, good morning. Regarding the astronauts, I wonder how their bodies are going to react to gravity once they get back to Earth. That's a great question. Kind of fascinating, the whole story. I was watching the interview, and when they were using the microphone, they would let go of the microphone, and it would just float there, and they could still do the interview for a little bit. And I thought, imagine if you're back on Earth, and the first time you go to do an interview, you do the same thing. And, of course, the microphone drops. There's probably going to be a few times where they drop things out of force of habit, but I don't know about their bodies physically. That's a great question. Next up, comment from a different viewer. As far as the tariffs, China said it is prepared for a war on the United States. Tariffs, whether it be tariffs on goods or a real war. Well, I was going to mention that a little bit later on, but thank you for bringing that up. Here we go. Here's an update. China warned that it's ready for any type of war with the U.S. in an alarming escalation as President Trump's tariffs went into effect. Chinese Foreign Minister spokesperson Lin Yin said if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. Quite an escalation there. His statement, reiterated on X by the Chinese embassy in Washington, cautioned that intimidation and bullying would not work, as China also imposed a 15% tariff on American agricultural goods. Pressuring, coercion, or threats are not the right way of dealing with China. Anyone using maximum pressure on China is picking the wrong guy and miscalculation, the spokesperson said. So China did fire back when the tariffs were originally announced, saying if the U.S. truly wants to solve the fentanyl issue, the right thing to do would be to consult China with mutual respect. Jin also defended China's retaliatory 15% tariffs on American goods, saying the country has made clear its opposition to the tariffs, but must defend our rights and interests. Now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth responded to those threats early yesterday, telling Fox News the U.S. is prepared and doing everything he can, and he's doing everything he can to deter conflict with China. Those who long for peace must prepare for war, Hegseth said. That's why we're rebuilding our military. That's why we're reestablishing deterrence and the warrior ethos. We live in a dangerous world with powerful countries with very different ideologies. They're rapidly increasing their defense spending, modern technology. They want to supplement the United States. If we want to deter war with the Chinese or others, we have to be strong. Hegseth's warning came as Trump doubled down on his decision to roll out sweeping tariffs, claiming other countries have used tariffs against us for decades. And now it's our turn to start using them against other countries. That's what he told Congress during the speech yesterday, or, well, 2 days ago now. Excuse me. So, yes, thank you for mentioning that, Mark. China warns it's ready for any type of war as Trump's tariffs go into effect, saying they will fight till the end. So that's some breaking news from yesterday. Also, yesterday, Trump issued a last warning to Hamas, saying the terror group can choose the outcome. President Trump issued a public warning to Hamas, saying that he is sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job and urged them to release all remaining hostages immediately or there will be hell to pay later. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, Shalom Hamas means hello and goodbye. You can choose. Let me read that again. Ooh. Shalom Hamas means hello and goodbye. You can choose. Release all of the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all the dead bodies of the people you murdered, or it's over for you. Only sick and twisted people keep bodies, and you are sick and twisted. And you add, when you look at the celebratory parades when they're releasing these bodies, it shows the world what we're dealing with and specifically what Israel is dealing with. That's why it's so shocking to see so many anti-Semitic, anti-Israel protests happening, not just on college campuses, but in the street. We are going to have an example here in a moment about one happening on college campuses. But you see the pure evil that is Hamas and these terrorist groups. And to think there are American citizens, some non-American citizens, I understand, as well, protesting and suggesting this is all Israel's fault is despicable. It's sickening. But Trump added in that post that not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say. I have just met with your former hostages whose lives you have destroyed. This is your last warning. For the leadership, now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. Also, the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. If you do, you are dead. Make a smart decision. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later. Now, Trump's demand for Hamas leaders to leave Gaza has historic precedent, with the Palestinian Liberation Organization evacuating thousands of fighters from Beirut, Lebanon, in 1982 in response to an Israeli encirclement. White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt said that Trump met privately with the former hostages, saying today President Trump took time to meet with 8 of the released hostages from Gaza. The president listened intently to their heartbreaking stories. The hostages thanked President Trump for his steadfast efforts to bring all the hostages home. Hours earlier, the White House confirmed the administration officials had been holding direct talks with Hamas to secure the release of at least some hostages. At least one American citizen hostage, Eden Alexander, 21, is believed to remain alive following the abductions that took place on October 7, 2023, when Hamas terrorists rampaged that music festival. Trump previously has issued stark warnings to Hamas, as you know. Now, just to give you a little more information about Alexander, the sole known American believed to be alive, was serving in the Israeli military when he was captured and therefore was not released in the initial wave of liberation under the terms of the ceasefire. So again, issuing that last warning, shalom means, shalom Hamas, shalom Hamas, I'm having trouble saying that, means hello and goodbye. You can choose. So when you see the parades of the dead bodies, when Hamas did that recently with the mother, and well, originally it wasn't the mother, and then of course it was a different body, and then they released the body of the mother later on, but the two young children, the toddlers, the babies that they murdered. I don't want to get into the graphic details of how they were murdered. If you want more information, you can find that elsewhere. You're not going to get it here. But to see them parading through the streets, celebrating, it goes to show you what we're dealing with when they talk about Gaza and Trump making it basically a brand new establishment. And we've talked about that in the past and his real seriousness when it comes to that. But it's to think that there are, I know I'm running late, but to think that there are people that are proud essentially to support these terrorist organizations, waving their flags. We talked about it recently that there is, they're trying to enact a law that would make that essentially a hate crime, that you would be imprisoned if you are waving a terrorist flag. There is some precedent for that. We'll see how that all winds up. I know some have said it goes against the First Amendment, but like I said, there is some precedent with that when you talk about things like the Ku Klux Klan using the robes and the hoods to intimidate citizens. That is banned. That's why we talked about Kathy Hochul should ban masks during these protests. Many people using masks to cover their face, cover their identity. So there's a pathetic nature to that too. Either you stand for something or you don't. The fact that you want to protest in the anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-police protests and not show your face is cowardly, but the whole thing is cowardly. So at Barnard College, a fake bomb threat prompted an evacuation as anti-Israel protesters occupied a campus building for a second consecutive week. You're not seeing this in the news. This hurt the Democrat Party so much because, as you know, I quote this a lot, but Van Jones said that the Democrat Party is marbled with anti-Semitism. And we saw that throughout the campaign. Many people speculating that that's perhaps why Kamala Harris didn't choose Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, governor of Pennsylvania, for her running mate, though some have speculated, and I may lean on this side too, that he and Gavin Newsom may have turned it down, not wanting to hitch their wagon to what they saw as a very potentially a bad candidate and big loss. You could take it either way, but we saw this anti-Semitism run amok in the Democrat Party, and it backfired. You saw a lot of anger, especially when you have an administration, the Biden administration, that was paying for college education, essentially, for so many, and then the people, the hardworking men and women of this country saying, wait, I'm paying as a taxpayer for these college kids to participate in anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, anti-American protests. Well, more than 50 NYPD officers in riot gear descended to the scene, ordering the more than 200 unruly students to exit the Milstein Center and clear out at least 1,000 feet from the courtyard. So this has been going on for 2 weeks. Have you seen the coverage of it? I have seen very little of it, except for outlets like the New York Post. As cops struggled to remove protesters from the campus grounds, Columbia students joined in from across the street, chanting in solidarity with the Barnard students, saying, NYPD, KKK, they are all the same. I was amazed at how bad chanting has been through the years. Does that even rhyme? NYPD, KKK, they are all the same. So that's a stretch for a chant. Police eventually cleared the courtyard, but the students milled about on the lawn outside the building, chanting "No justice, no peace." They ignored several orders to move a safe distance from the building. Cops arrested at least 9 people and took them into custody. and I'm sure they'll be slapped on the wrist, if anything. I'm sure there'll be no real punishment. The NYPD announced shortly after 8 p.m. that a bomb threat was investigated and cleared. The protesters had taken over the building, which serves as an academic hub of the elite private school, hanging an Old West-style wanted poster and an effigy of school administrators in a startling escalation of their dangerous rhetoric. And that's what this has always been about. It's about intimidating people. It's about threatening people. That's why I'm glad he's done it. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it extensively yesterday, but Donald Trump talking about these schools losing federal funding if this anti-Semitism continues to run amok. Moments before the bomb threat was called in, the mob had been engaged in a protest over 2 students who were expelled last month for barging into a class on modern Israel and tossing anti-Semitic flyers around the room. So they're outraged that students, obviously trying to intimidate Jewish students, got expelled for throwing anti-Semitic flyers around a class on modern Israel. An official department account warned that anyone who refuses to leave the location is subject to arrest. As I mentioned, the Old West style type poster said, "Wanted, Dean of Students Leslie Grenage for the expulsion of pro-Palestinian students. Reward for info leading to a meeting." And it included a likeness of the administrator. On the front door of the building, mass protesters hung a shoddy, albeit, but still an effigy, which was actually a plush puppet of Bernard President Laura Rosenberry, who castigated protesters for refusing to remove their masks in an op-ed. "For the safety and security of our community, everyone in the building, you need to leave now. This is not a joke," said the vice president. So enough on that. But unfortunately, the anti-Semitic protests continue, not getting the coverage because, again, I think it hurt Democrats so much that the media doesn't like reporting on it. It also, I don't know, it's always a red flag when a media outlet calls it pro-Palestinian protest, using the same language that they try to use when it's clearly anti-Semitic and designed to intimidate Jewish students, and when it happens in New York City, Jewish residents. But we've got a lot more to get to. Just something as an update. Wow, I see a lot of comments coming in. We'll get to them when we come back, so stay with us. Running real late. We'll be right back.
What if there was a place where every kid got a chance to be great? There is a place. Milton Hershey School. You see, we're more than a school. We change lives. And you can be next.
Let's beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hesselson's Hot Tub. With every spa purchase, Hesselson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hesselson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hesselson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Corning, Elmira, Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen. Big Fox 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. Touchdown! Your teams, your highlights, your scores. Get more of what you want. To the end zone! Stream your teams live. It's free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. This is interesting that these both came up. First comment, in response to Hochul recruiting government workers, the governor of PA is doing the same, following right in her footsteps. Comment from a different viewer. Did you see that PA is now advertising for fired federal employees, claiming they need to fill 8,000 positions? You guys are on the same page. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, a lot of it's for show. I think with Hochul, optics-wise, I think it's very bad to be holding roundtables with federal employees that lost their jobs due to Doge cuts while not having a roundtable or a discussion with corrections officers. If you even recall last week, I believe it was last week, Governor Hochul saying, I don't even know what their issues are, as they have listed numerous times their list of demands. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Comment from a different viewer. Trump warns Zelensky about starting World War III, but then he starts with Greenland and China. Trump is nothing but a bully. It's time for impeachment. There you are. Thank you, viewer. You try to read all the comments that people send in. Sometimes that's not feasible, or there's cussing involved. Okay, one last thing, because I've got to take another break right away. But keep those comments coming in, please. Tying in with the terrorists and President Trump's threat to Hamas. This was interesting. Coming out yesterday, the Biden administration locked up or deported just 8 out of more than 100 migrants with suspected ties to ISIS. So the Biden administration deported just 8 out of 100 migrants with suspected ties to ISIS who crossed illegally into the United States. That's according to Tulsi Gabbard, of course, the director of national intelligence. The Trump administration is now working to hunt down the terror suspects and pick up the pieces left behind by the last administration. This was at a press conference that she held with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth at Eagle Pass, Texas. The migrants from ISIS, recruiting hotbed countries in Central Asia, were known to have ties to an ISIS-affiliated network. According to Tulsi Gabbard, the Biden administration was previously informed that more than 4,000 migrants utilized the ISIS-tied smugglers to cross into the U.S., and that hundreds of them were identified by the feds as, quote, either known terrorists or associated with known terrorists. Gabbard said that when she took over, she found that just of those 8 migrants are either still locked up or have been deported. So just 8 out of over 100. That information was provided to the Biden administration, you may remember, in some of the news. A little over 100 of those people were arrested in 2024. Of those who were arrested, only 8 were either deported or remained in custody. Only 8, Gabbard said. The rest of them were released back into our country. Where are they? What are they doing? What may they be plotting? This is just the beginning. Now, while speaking to reporters, Vice President Vance at this press conference touted President Trump's success in securing the border, where illegal crossings have dropped to their lowest levels in recorded history. In the area where Eagle Pass is located, daily illegal migrant crossings have dropped from 1,500 to 30. It turns out and this is J.D. Vance kind of, I'm not going to say stole, that's a loaded word, but used Donald Trump's line from the joint sessions of Congress, saying it turns out we didn't need new laws, we didn't need fancy legislation, we just needed a new president of the United States. That's what Trump had essentially said, the same thing, kind of watered down a little bit, but said that during the speech, which the speech we will talk a little bit more about later on, because there are a couple, I'm not going to say updates, but a couple of comments I think worth mentioning. When we come back, we're going to get into some New York State issues. As I mentioned, Senator Tom O'Mara will be our guest tomorrow on the program. So if you have any questions for the senator, please send them along, and we'll do our best to get to those questions. A lot of things to cover: the budget, the guard strike, chips. We are going to hear from, speaking of chips, we're going to hear from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano about that. We may even start off with that in the next segment after we read your comments. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
It's time to say not so fast chronic kidney disease. Because with a progressive disease like CKD, slow is good. And believe me, I know all about slow. That's why I'm here to tell you about Jardiance. It's a little pill proven to slow the progression of CKD and reduce the risk of kidney failure, which can lead to dialysis.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
So go on, say not so fast CKD. Ask your doctor about Jardiance for chronic kidney disease.
In a few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. I have to wonder if any hired former federal employees will be able to work from home, which, to the best of my knowledge, is one of the reasons they were let go in the first place. Well, we know, interestingly enough, that Gavin Newsom from California, who is considered a presidential frontrunner for the Democrat Party, though that may have changed with his mishandling of the wildfires. But he actually released a statement yesterday, we reported on it, that he was calling state workers back to the office, kind of copying Doge's mindset. But I think it only went to 4 days. They don't want to go all in yet, not quite 5 days. I'd love to know your thoughts. Does Newsom stand a chance after the fires to be the nominee for the Democratic Party? But anyway, I have my feelings, and maybe someone in this audience can clear this up. I don't believe that Governor Hochul would go that avenue of demanding that workers come back to the office. So yes, I would believe that these federal workers could actually be working for the state government, being paid for by your tax dollars. They could still be staying in Washington, doing it from home. They could be in another state altogether. We know that Governor Hochul was holding that roundtable because she thought it was good optics, showing that she cares, that she wants to be the leader of the resistance, and specifically the resistance against Doge, because she tries so hard and fails so miserably to be kind of a power player in the Democrat Party, to be relevant in a way, which is a word we've used a lot today, but she's not relevant outside of the state and even in the state very often with the comments that she makes. So it was more about the optics. So I think in a way that backfires for New York State residents that say, wait a minute, you want to take the people that Doge suggested were not essential, that in many instances were not good workers. You want to take those people and hire them by a state that's already broke, hire them. And to this viewer's point, they may not even have to live in the state. Who knows? Hire them, and you won't have conversations with the corrections officers that are keeping us safe day in and day out. Even saying last week that you don't even know what their issues are. So you don't have a roundtable with them. You don't have a conversation with them. So we are going to talk about the corrections officers. Wow, a lot of comments coming in. We'll get to those in just a moment because I don't have to take a break. Let's go to the corrections officers, shall we? Now, according to RochesterFirst.com, and this came out a little while ago, so I have not heard more, and this is why I'm bringing it up to you, because I know we have a lot of corrections officers that watch this program, or people whose loved ones or friends are corrections officers out there striking. What would this be, 18 days? But state officials have failed to convince some 8,000 corrections officers and sergeants to end their unlawful strike for safer working conditions. Now their boss wants some of them held in contempt for violating a temporary restraining order. The New York Attorney General's office, on behalf of the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, filed court papers Monday, so here it is Thursday, to seek to punish corrections officers with fines up to $442 per day and even threatening imprisonment. I have not heard where this goes. This was on Empire Report this morning. Like I said, it's a relatively older story. We have not had a chance to get to it, obviously, with the speech yesterday, etc. So have you heard anything more about this? The threatening of imprisonment, $442 a day fine. According to Assistant Attorney General Soo Young Chang, the ongoing strike threatens irreparable harm to the operations of DOCCS, which was already experiencing staffing shortages, and these actions will only serve to exacerbate an already volatile situation. I had a great conversation about this. You think, first of all, if Hochul fires all these corrections officers, it's not like they're going to be replaced. There's already a major struggle to get people to take the job. But having a conversation where we didn't... with a difference of opinion, we'll put that way, on the HALT Act, set that aside. I think what anybody can agree on, and this was a great conversation. I don't want to give too much away, but this conversation, like I said, not necessarily on the same page on HALT, though not that far apart. But it all boils down to, at least to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, the mandatory overtime. That, talk about a powder keg, where you have people working in a hostile environment that haven't seen their family, their loved ones in 24 hours, have been working that full time, 24 hours. And they're being maybe attacked, maybe yelled at, whatever, by the people around them. The majority of the people around them not friendly to them. When do those people snap? It's not justifying when there's violence. It's not justifying anything like that. But we've all been there with a lack of sleep, and we know how on edge we are. Why would Governor Hochul and this union think it's okay to then put that mandate on them that they have to work 24 hours when they know of how dangerous a job the corrections officers have day in and day out? So to me, yes, I know I've heard a lot of people say that they've signed on to a job that we all know comes with these the violence and the threats and the things like that. It's a dangerous job. We all know that, and they signed up. It wasn't like they were drafted. I understand that argument. But I think the point that makes it so wrong is when you start the mandatory overtime for up to 24 hours. We've heard even longer. That's when you're talking about a whole different level of stress on these people. So I just, to see them try to figure this out, we know it's only going to make things worse if they don't, meaning the state, correct this soon. And I don't see them doing it. Hochul doesn't have the backbone to go to the progressive left and fight for changes and actual reform. So we know that's not going to happen. And I don't think, if you look at her saying she didn't even know what the issues are with the corrections officers, I don't think there could be a good faith negotiation anyway. And I think if you saw the PR tactic of saying they reached a deal, what was that, last Friday? Reached a deal 2 Fridays ago with the union, when the union has never represented the strike in the first place, or these workers. Hochul said, as I've said for weeks, my top priority is the safety and well-being of all New Yorkers involved in the correctional system, from civilian employees to National Guard to correction officers to incarcerated individuals. The ongoing illegal work stoppage is a significant safety risk. I once again reiterate the need for corrections officers to return to work. Ooh, tough talk. Reiterate the need. But going back to what Chang said, since the strike began, the state has moved mountains at a cost of millions of dollars to maintain its prison system, including by bringing in thousands of National Guard members to staff them and by paying officers who have continued to do their duty a higher rate of overtime pay. Moreover, steps have been attempted, an amnesty was offered, a consent award was reached under the auspices of a mediator. Nevertheless, the officers proceeded against here, still refusing to return, as do a great many others who continue to defy this court's will. So it could be looking at huge fines or prison time, imprisonment for the strikers. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we come back. I do have to take a short break. A lot of comments coming in. Keep them coming in. I'd love to hear from you. We're going to read all our comments. We had someone earlier call for the impeachment of Donald Trump, so we read all of them. All right, stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back.
Your Social Security disability claim has been denied, and you don't understand why. Your physical or emotional problems make it impossible for you to work. I'm Peter Gorton of Lockman & Gorton. Don't give up. Together, we'll file your appeal to give you the best chance to win the benefits you deserve.
For a free consultation, call Lockman & Gorton, toll free 1-800-698-0567.
Laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustleson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustleson's Hot Tub. With every spot purchase, Hustleson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustleson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustleson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
It's all types to play Family Feud. The Blunt Mama.
If you knew Steve Harvey was at your door, you'd answer it wearing what?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Weeknights at 7 and 7:30.
Oh, the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Thank you for joining us. All right, we got a lot of viewer comments here. Let me start here. Oh, Democrats, yeah, okay. This is a comment from quite a few viewers, but Democrats got used to Joe Biden with a mental decline, with the struggles that he had, to put it lightly. They got used to that. And with White House, when you have Trump's energy, his vitality, it scares the Democrats, especially how effective he is. We saw that in the speech. First of all, let's boil it down to brass tacks. Biden couldn't have given that 90-minute speech. Not many of us could give a 90-minute speech like that. But when he talked about his accomplishments and how much has been done in such a short period of time, I do believe, to your point, that there is a fear factor there. And in this case, the threat is he's finding all the stuff Democrats have hidden from Americans. That's why I think it's so ironic when you'll have Democrats say, especially the person that responded to Trump's speech, saying everybody wants to see, waste ended in government. But it's always that but. They don't want real change, and what Trump has been offering is real change, and that scares them. Comment from a different viewer. As far as the comment that Trump is a bully, we had a comment earlier in the show, if you're just joining us, that Trump is a bully and that he should be impeached. This viewer says, as far as the comment that Trump is a bully, I'll take a bully over a sleeping president that didn't care about our country. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. What do you think about the VA losing so many workers? This is interesting. What are they saying? I read about it this morning. I think I have it in my stack of papers. It's 80,000 employees they plan on laying off this year. What the statement is, and I had it here, in the memo instructing top-level staff to prepare for an agency-wide reorganization in August to, quote, resize and tailor the workforce to the mission and revise structure. It Also called for agency officials to work with DOJ to move out aggressively while taking a pragmatic and disciplined approach to the Trump administration's goals. So that's a little bit of an update. So really, we're just learning about it now. If it's to streamline, if it's to make it more efficient, let's face it. How long has there been talks about issues with the VA? Going way back. So obviously the goal would be to make it more efficient. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Okay, comment from a different viewer. Wildfire Newsom doesn't stand a chance. Well, he was one of the front runners for the nomination from the Democrat Party. Comment from another viewer. Threatening to jail law-abiding strikers, yet they'll let unlawful illegal aliens walk free. What a bunch of hypocritical clowns. Of course, that's in reference to the corrections officer strike. A very different comment from a different viewer, obviously. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Those corrections officers need to get their you-know-whats back to work. They don't keep us safe. They knew when they became corrections officers what the job entails. Get back to work, you overpaid corrections officers. If you are working overtime, cops and firefighters many times do the same thing. They need to be fired, hire new people that know what the job entails and get paid very good, vacation pay, holidays, and great benefits. So fire them. If you walked off your job for not only 18 days, but even 1 to 5 days, you know what would have been fired. Thank you very much. Keep them coming. We got a lot of varying opinions this morning on Frankly Speaking, and I really do appreciate it. We do have another break coming up, but just to kind of wrap up my part of the discussion about corrections officers, but you're more than welcome to continue to discuss it. Leader from New York State of Politics, leaders from the State Corrections Officers and Police Benevolent Association came out yesterday appearing to feel isolated from its members and the state, from its members and the state, as the strike its members are partaking in hits its 17th day. Executive Vice President Matt Coe, we'll say Coe, acknowledged that members at this point did not trust union leadership. Well, I think that could boil back to when they said there was an agreement reached between Hochul and the union, but what a bad agreement. I mean, I think most would agree with that. So I could see where there wouldn't be this trust, the feeling as if they were not being represented. So again, he said, have you acted in their behalf on a legal aspect? Yes, we have. Have we acted in a standard that they believe that we should be upholding? No, we don't. Our union membership has no faith in us right now. Now, after a consent agreement between the union and the State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision late last week failed to convince many prison employees to return to work, NYSCOPA said it has learned of outside influences attempting to act as mediators. Quote, we now have outside influences with their own agendas networking on the behalf of a number of members that are attempting to negotiate a settlement with the state. For the state to entertain anyone other than NYSCOPA to represent the interest of our members would be going down a path that will only prolong the strike. Now, Matt Coe, said they aren't sure who these influences are, but many of them appear to be originating on social media. Quote, there's proposals out there from outside influences that mirror the mediation agreement with some different wording. The difference between that it came directly from the strike lines. I don't disagree with some of the stuff that they have in there, but it is part of our mediation agreement that once it's clear and in place and everybody goes back to work, ours would be court binding as opposed to the stuff that the outside people are trying to get the Department of Corrections to agree to without us being involved in any way, shape, or form. The reason for those outside influences appear to be frustration between NYSCOPA members and its leadership. The union didn't sanction the strike and cannot, without facing serious fines from the state, the union leaders say would cripple the union in a matter of days. Leaders pointed to a contentious union meeting in early February when dissatisfaction with the status quo started to boil. When asked what the disconnection is, Coe pointed to the centerpiece of the strike, which is, of course, the HALT Act. They want a repeal of HALT. They want the complete repeal of HALT, and we can't provide that for them. So that's where our failure came in their eyes. We can't repeal HALT, so the union is failing them. We don't have to go through. We know all the timeline on this, but there seems to be a real disconnect, and I don't even really think this is a news article. I think this is pretty well known that there's a disconnect between the union and the striking COs. Okay, let's take a short break. We'll read some more of your comments and wrap up this hour of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Elmira, Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen, Big Fox 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Wrapping up our number one, hard to believe. Let's go through a few viewer comments, then a couple announcements, and we'll head into the next hour. Okay. Trump has done more in 5 weeks than Biden-Harris did to totally destroy this country in 4 years, on top of Obama's destruction. Well, Trump had made the comment that he had done more in those 5 weeks than some presidents have done in 4 to 8 years. He kind of started, I believe, the speech that way, if I'm not mistaken, and that really started the kind of the temper tantrum. The leftist Democrats are being ridiculous. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. You are correct. When I was in the, well, first of all, thank you. You are correct. When I was in the Army, I pulled some 24-hour CQs, which is charge of quarters duty. You do get into an altered state of mind at the end of a shift. I feel for the COs. Stay the line. Thank you very much for those comments. We've had some great back and forth this morning. I do have a couple other New York State issues we'll get to in the next hour. Speaking of New York State issues, we're going to be talking with Senator Tom O'Mara on tomorrow's program, so get your questions in if you have anything you'd like to ask the Senator, Tom O'Mara, tomorrow on the program. Also, I have a quick second. Yesterday, we had a great conversation with John Buren. He's the majority leader in the Chemung County Legislature. It was about solar panels and solar battery storage. And I forgot to mention this, and I just want to highlight this, and I'll remind you as it nears. But mark your calendar, because if you are interested in learning more about this topic or having this discussion, there is going to be a meeting on March 10th at 7 p.m. at Hendy School for anyone that is interested. So again, March 10th, 7 p.m. at Hendy School, we'll be highlighting, and it's about solar panels and solar battery storage. Stay with us. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, mere moments away.
Getting the right representation.
It matters.
Hiring a law firm whose focus is motor vehicle accident cases.
It matters.
Hiring a firm with the experience and resources to maximize your recovery.
It matters.
William Mattar is the largest motor vehicle accident firm in New York State. We got that way by winning. If you're hurt in a car, it matters who you hire. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Let's beat the dark days days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub? With every spot purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense Chemical Auto Ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesense.
It's all types to play Family Feud. The Blunt Mama.
If you knew Steve Harvey was at your door, you'd answer it wearing what?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Weeknights at 7 and 7:30.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you for joining us. We're going to kick off this hour with a couple comments from viewers. We're going to wrap up our discussion on New York State issues quickly because we do have a lot, kind of wildly, about the speech, Donald Trump's speech. We're also going to talk about the media, the way they handled that amazing story of the boy fighting cancer. We're going to talk about that. But first, comments from viewers. I wonder how quickly Hochul would repeal the HALT Act if those policemen who support the striking employees were to threaten to go on strike. Interesting point. Thank you, viewer. Comment from a different viewer. This is from Mark. Mark writes, why don't the prison guards stop paying their union dues? It seems the union is not helping them anyway. Vote the union out. Thank you very much. Hey, a couple quick New York State issues. Let me go as quickly as I can. We've been talking about the tariffs. The New York Post editorial board has, I think, something many of us in this audience could agree with. They say New York wouldn't have to worry so much about the risk of its energy imports from a possible U.S.-Canada trade war if Governor Hochul had embraced fracking for natural gas rather than declaring war on carbon-based fuels. Monthly gas bills in New York City are roughly 15% higher than in Philadelphia, thanks to the contrast in state policies, because we know Pennsylvania allowed fracking. Actually embraced it about 2 decades ago. It's hard to believe it's been that long. But at the time, New York shunned it and continues to do so. Perhaps worse, the Hochul-Cuomo, quote, climate action plan is sending utility bills soaring with hidden surcharges to fund windmill construction and other wildly costly flights of fantasy, and pushes all to switch to electric stoves, heat, car, so on, without actually increasing the local supply of electricity. Natural gas provides more than 70% of home heating statewide. Gas generates 63% of Con Ed's electricity. Sure would be nice if we were harvesting the state's huge supplies of natural gas rather than importing the fuel and electricity from our neighbors. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in 2023 recommended that New York and other northeastern states bolster their gas energy infrastructure. Hochul, as typical, ignored it. All these green pastures don't actually put a dent in climate change, but only burden and endanger working New Yorkers. Ditch the lunatic energy policies, Governor. Frack, Kathy. Frack. So thank you, New York Post editorial board. Oh, one thing, and I promised I'd do this earlier. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, they have the highway department people come once a year in Albany. They all wear orange shirts. It's really interesting to see, really cool to see, to talk about CHIPS funding. So I wanted to just quickly play for you a statement that the Assemblyman made yesterday following that get-together.
An annual event that happens up here at the New York State Capitol to see 700 plus highway superintendents across the state wearing their orange shirts to come up here with a unified message of local roads are essential, local roads matter, and the importance of funding the critically important CHIPS program, which directs critical resources right to our local communities, towns, villages, cities, counties, so they can improve their local roads, bridges, and culverts. The ask, it's a bipartisan effort, is $250 million directed to the CHIPS program. It's warranted and it's justified. The fact of the matter is if the governor's budget holds a flat funding, this would be 3 years in a row at the same level. But according to the Federal Highway Administration, highway construction cost index inflationary is a 70% increase in costs over the past 3 years. So the money that the highway superintendents are getting now is not adequate enough. It's being eaten away by inflation. But the fact of the matter, this is also justified because 87% of the roads in New York State are owned and maintained by municipalities. 52% of the 18,000 bridges in New York State are owned and maintained by local municipalities. Every dollar you invest in the CHIPS program saves a local property taxpayer $1. Every dollar invested in the CHIPS program saves $6 to $14 in long-term rehabilitation costs. The fact of the matter is that this is a bipartisan effort. We sent a letter to the governor and legislative leaders asking for this increase. We're going to be advocating for it through the one-house budgets and in the final adopted budget because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you to the Assemblyman for that statement. I wanted to pass that along to you before we got too far behind this morning. All right, speaking of New York, Hakeem Jeffries, of course, from New York, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He is defending the behavior of the Democrats during the joint sessions speech. He defended the conduct of, quote, the majority of his fellow Democrats, but he declined to weigh in on the protests by a smaller group of Democrats during the marathon address, most notably Representative Al Green's heckling of the president and being ejected from the chamber. There is talk of censure on him. Jeffries, who's been among the long list of Democrats who have criticized conservative Republicans for outbursts during the State of the Union delivered by Democrat presidents, eluded the question of whether Green deserves the same scrutiny. So just showing his hypocrisy. But now someone said in leadership, and I think that's more of the Pelosi's, the Steny Hoyer, people like that, were suggesting, Schumer, were suggesting that they don't be so rambunctious, don't be so loud, don't be annoying, don't embarrass yourselves. Many in the Democrat Party decided to go a very different way with it. An overwhelming majority of House Democrats approached the speech with the seriousness that it deserved on behalf of the American people, Jeffries said. Ahead of Trump's speech, Jeffries had advised Democrat lawmakers to do what they thought was best for their district. For some, that meant boycotting the event. For most others, it meant attending out of reverence for the tradition, but sitting silently to protest Trump's message. I think that was the worst decision you could have made because by sitting silent and sitting on your hands, Trump brilliantly had those human stories involved throughout the whole event. That when you see people not standing and clapping for a young boy who is fighting cancer, if you felt that that was the best optics for your district, I think you were misled. Democrat leaders had also cautioned lawmakers not to make waves during the speech, lest the protests overshadow the content of Trump's words. In a letter to the troops on Monday, Jeffries advocated the importance of having a strong, determined, and dignified Democratic presence in the chamber. Other lawmakers interpreted his message plainly, don't make it about you. Not too many people in the Democrat Party didn't try to make it about themselves. That's what the paddle boards were for, and that's why every once in a while someone would stand up with a paddle board so that they know there'd be a photo taken of them looking like they're standing, or you have that one woman who had a sign that said this is not normal and got right next to Trump. They all wanted to make it about themselves. They all wanted to get the most likes, get the most TikTok views. Now, Senator, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment because, let's talk about it right now. I have this one story that I keep kind of putting off, but two stories. And here is the information that I had just mentioned. The House of Representatives moved to advance the censure of Representative Al Green after his unruly behavior during Trump's address. In a 211 to 209 vote, the House voted to move forward with the censoring of Green after the House Sergeant at Arms escorted him out during Trump's speech. You saw what happened. Again, I think anybody who's followed Al Green's career would not be surprised of how he behaved himself. In the aftermath of the incident, Representative Dan Newhouse introduced a resolution to censor Green over his behavior. It says, whereas the conduct of the representative from Texas disrupted the proceedings of the joint address and was a breach of proper conduct, and whereas after numerous disruptions, the representative from Texas had to be removed from the chambers by the Sergeant at Arms, now therefore be it resolved that Representative Al Green be censured. The Democrats were reported as having tried to table the resolution known as H. Res 189, but the move to table ended up being rejected. So there you are. That's an update. So we got a lot of comments coming in. And we will get to those as much as we can in just a moment. I'm just looking at my time. But yeah, you know what? I am going to take a break. Because we have a lot of comments coming in, but I don't want to get into this next piece, but it's a very interesting piece. And it's by Robert Holden. And what Robert Holden, and he's a council member representing District 30 in Queens. He is a Democrat. And he said, as a lifelong Democrat, I never thought I'd see my party embarrass itself so much. That's a thought. Now, this is very different from the comment that we had earlier. If you are just joining us on the program, comment from a viewer earlier. Trump warned Zelensky about starting World War III, but then he starts with Greenland and China. Trump is nothing but a bully. It's time for impeachment. So we've had a lot of great discussion back and forth, very different sides of the coin throughout the whole morning. So keep those comments coming in as we take our first break in hour number 2. Stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Trust your child to Dr. Hench's at either Watkins Glen, Elmira, Horseheads, or Elkland Family Dentistry. All 4 locations provide cutting-edge technology to make sure your visit is comfortable and stress-free. Dr. Hench's offers treatment in all areas of dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and treatment for all ages. For the best dental care in the region, trust Dr. Hench's and his staff at Watkins Glen, Horseheads, Elmira, and Elkland Family Dentistry. Call any one of his offices today or visit them online for more information.
7 to buy certified pre-owned vehicles at Chilson Wilcox Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
7-year or 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
3 months or 3,000-mile maximum care coverage.
Carfax Vehicle History Report.
Car rental allowance. 24-hour roadside assistance.
125-point vehicle inspection.
3-month Sirius XM radio.
Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. A viewer commented, sending in a somewhat breaking story, and it's from Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. He tweeted out, he X'd out, that he is demanding the DOJ investigate whether President Biden's cognitive decline allowed unelected staff to push through radical policy without his knowing approval. He said, quote, if true, these executive orders, pardons, and all other actions are unconstitutional and legally void. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's coming from Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Okay. So this piece from Robert Holden, a Democrat from Queens, saying, as a lifelong Democrat, I never imagined I would watch my own party embarrass itself so thoroughly and so publicly as it did during that joint session of Congress. From obnoxious booing to childish protest signs to a sitting member of Congress having to be physically removed from the chamber, Democrats turned what should have been a solemn, dignified event into a bad reality show. And for what? To go viral on TikTok? To book a slot on MSNBC to brag about their resistance? It sounds like Hochul there too, doesn't it? Brag about the resistance. What a great point. That's exactly what it was all about. It was about me, making it about themselves. And I can understand why this person is embarrassed. And various members tried to do different things. So one had a whiteboard, one had the paddle, one had, they all wanted to make it about themselves and to show that they are the resistance. And also, I think the optics of it for the American people, when you have President Trump giving his speech and you have J.D. Vance on one side, you have Speaker Johnson on the other. It showed the mandate that they had, and it showed a weakness in the Democrat Party of not knowing how to handle that mandate, and also essentially, can you hear that? Tons of birds out there. But they don't know how to handle it. They look like someone throwing essentially a temper tantrum. But continuing with what Robert Holden had to say, nothing was more disgraceful than when my colleagues refused to stand or clap when 13-year-old DJ Daniel, a brain cancer survivor, was made an honorary Secret Service agent. The boy beat cancer and dreamed of protecting the president. That dream came true when President Donald Trump honored him, a beautiful human moment that should have transcended politics. But remember, we even had it yesterday, was it Nicole Wallace, that we had, they were saying that, boy, it was nice, but I couldn't stop but think, what if he was Secret Service during January 6th? Would he have committed suicide like 6 others had? Would he have gotten the help with cancer research that he needed if it was during Trump's NIH? I mean, turning something like this into politics is sickening. Democrats used to be the party of compassion, the party that stood up for the vulnerable and celebrated stories of triumph over adversity. That's according to Democrat Robert Holden. Now, we can't even clap for a kid who beat cancer if the wrong president is standing beside him. When Trump said biological men shouldn't compete in women's sports, Democrats acted like he'd proposed banning Little League. But most Americans, including plenty of Democrats, agree that protecting women's sports isn't radical. It's common sense. The same thing happened when Trump called for cutting waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. Democrats stayed silent. Are we now the party that supports waste, fraud, and abuse? When Trump honored families whose loved ones were killed due to reckless sanctuary policies, Democrats couldn't even show basic respect. When he honored Stephanie Diller, the widow of murdered NYPD officer Jonathan Diller, it should have been a moment of unity. Yet many Democrats offered only lukewarm applause, if any at all. And when Trump called for the death penalty for cop killers, the silence was deafening. Since when did standing up for the families of fallen officers become controversial? Another disappointing moment came when President Trump called for peace in Ukraine, a goal that should have brought both sides of the aisle to the feet. Democrats were once a party of peace, but you wouldn't know it from the silence. Have we really reached a point where even supporting peace is treated as partisan? It's a sad reflection of how far my party has drifted. Again, this is Robert Holden. This isn't principled resistance, it's emotional immaturity. It also reeks of hypocrisy. Democrats rightly condemned Republican Representative Joe Wilson when he shouted, "You lie," at Barack Obama during a State of the Union. Back then, we said such outbursts were beneath the dignity of Congress. But Democrat antics on Tuesday, waving signs, heckling, and walking out, were just as bad, if not worse. I would say worse. But Democrat Representative Al Green even had to be physically removed from the chamber. When we act like this, we embarrass ourselves and alienate the very voters we claim to champion. Senator John Fetterman called it a sad cavalcade of self-owns and unhinged petulance that only made Trump look more presidential and restrained. I would agree with Fetterman on that. Fetterman has been outspoken about this kind of part of the Democrat Party. As I had mentioned that article that was quite some time ago, that there's two Democrat parties. One is the party of Fetterman. The other is the party of AOC, which I think there's a point to that, but it seems like the party of AOC is the most vocal and getting the most attention, and it could very well be the majority. So it is, it did make Trump look more presidential and restrained. You know, as someone that gets accused, meaning Trump, of being bombastic and the like, this put him in a more presidential frame because of the antics of the Democrat Party. But I'll continue. Fetterman warned that Democrats are becoming the political equivalent of car alarms, constantly blaring and increasingly ignored. That's a very good way of putting it. And I don't like the term itself, but he's right, the self-owns, that it was an unforced error. They embarrass themselves when not necessary. They embarrass themselves all on their own. Voters want leaders who act like adults, who clap for good ideas, no matter who proposes them, and who show bipartisan respect for families who've suffered unimaginable loss. Americans are exhausted by this nonsense. They want leaders who solve problems, not politicians chasing retweets. They want representatives who stand up for common sense, not political theater. Until we get back to that, we don't deserve to govern. I'm not saying we should agree with everything Trump says, far from it. However, there's a way to disagree with dignity and class. My fellow Democrats didn't just miss that opportunity, they sprinted in the opposite direction. I'm embarrassed for my party, but more importantly, I'm worried for my country. If Democrats can't even applaud a kid beating cancer, grieving families, saving tax dollars, securing our borders, or a call for peace, what does that say about us? Again, that's New York City Council Member Robert Holden, a Democrat representing District 30 in Queens. And it gets worse. I mean, if you look at, and we're going to talk about it kind of quickly, but Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow both blasting Trump honoring that young boy dealing with cancer. There may be a reason why we keep talking about the decline in media. But we do have to take a short break, and we'll talk about that when we come back. We have a lot to cover, not a lot of time to get there. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. I do appreciate this morning. We've had a lot of different opinions, and I appreciate that. I like that about this program. That's why this program is about community. It's about having the conversation. And that's why, if you are new to the show, you see that number on the bottom of the screen, 607-358-3131. You can text there. And I've had people ask, interestingly, a few people ask lately, how they participate in the wave. All you got to do is set an emoji or say good morning, or if you walk by and wave, that's where we add that little hand on the bottom of the screen. That's where we add your wave to it. So I've had a few people ask that lately. I thought that was fun. Something we started early on in the program. All right, we'll be right back. But frankly speaking, stay with us. It's hard to believe how fast this show's going. We'll be right back.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Our son Brett to a glioblastoma. This was our last chance to show our community who he really was. Carpenters, Phillips, and Flint, they were so willing to create that ceremony however we wanted to do it. They could not have been more gracious.
You should consider them highly. You'll feel good about your thoughts and your decisions.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
In a few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30 on Big Fox.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Don't forget, I mentioned this the other day, but I know I'm looking forward to this. And by the way, thanks for all the waves coming in. I didn't bring that up, the wave counter, just for that reason, but I do appreciate it. So I brought this up the other day. We've been bringing it up quite consistently, but I know people are getting really excited about it. So I hope that you'll mark your calendar for the Courting Moose Lodge 274 Wienerville party, which is coming up next Saturday from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. It's all-you-can-eat hot dogs and baked potato bar. It's served with various toppings from 4 to 7 p.m. And you see the music there, just $15 per person. And thank you so much to the Moose Lodge, because they are taking the proceeds and donating it to the Salvation Army of Corning. So they're doing it for a great cause, a great organization. Full disclosure, I'm very proudly chairman of the Salvation Army Advisory Board, but they're going to have this fun event. I know I'm going to be there, and I know it's going to be a blast. So I hope everybody can make it out. Mark your calendar now, and I'll be reminding you as the event nears. but we don't want you to forget about it. So we will be talking about it a lot. All right. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. As for the woman with a sign, okay, that's the woman who was trying to get a picture with Trump. That was one, if I'm being honest, that was one of the most cringeworthy parts for me, just because you saw her trying to make it all about herself. She was doing it so she could have that photo, and people go, yeah, you're the resistance. She really did it. It's kind of a level of pathetic, really. But back to what this viewer was saying. For the woman with the sign, she is right. Trump is not normal. He's not taking any grief, we'll say. Taking any grief. Yeah, not like a normal politician or specifically a normal Republican president who does take a lot of grief, that very quickly caves. Let's be honest, not all Republican presidents, I'm not saying that, but some of the most recent ones, it always seemed as if, I'm definitely not talking about Reagan, I'm saying more, okay, I'm just going to say the George W. Bushes of the world, who, when the media started a little bit of pushback on him, would cave, would get scared. We're not seeing that from Trump, so it's not normal. You're right. Thank you. We were talking about DJ Daniel, the 13-year-old cancer survivor. Well, Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow have been blasted as sick and twisted after they shamelessly politicized Trump making a 13-year-old cancer survivor, DJ Daniel, an honorary Secret Service agent. We mentioned what Nicole Wallace said. But those two, Nicole Wallace, and I didn't realize about the Rachel Maddow one because obviously I didn't watch it, they decided to politicize this, much like the members of the audience on the Democrat side that would not clap, that would not cheer. Imagine, and someone said it, and I thought it was such a great point. I can't remember who said it. I wish I could. I'd like to give credit where credit's due. Saying that, imagine that young boy, 13 years old, perhaps the honor of his life right now, happening in Congress, and he looks down and half of the people are sitting there not cheering him. I mean, it's despicable. But Maddow bizarrely accused Trump of being disgusting for spotlighting DJ's heroic battle with the disease, which the youngster had initially been warned would kill him in just a few months. Quote, this is what Maddow said. Quote, for the record, and this is disgusting, the president made a spectacle out of praising a young man who's thus far survived pediatric cancer, as if the president had something to do with that. I hope he's, and then there, why would she say that? Did Trump even allude to that? Just talking about more of the heroics of the fight and also about the respect for law enforcement. So that was Maddow. I mentioned yesterday what Wallace said. I hope he's alive for another 95 years. And I hope he lives the life he wants to live. He wants to be a cop. He knows what he wants to do. And maybe when you have childhood cancer, that crystallizes you. Wallace said that after noting she had felt joy over the boy's moment, I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer, but I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide. What a twisted leap of logic. And this is also, remember, this is after the fact, if he needs more help with cancer, will Trump's NIH be there? And if this would have happened during Trump's administration, would he still be here today? Just sickening political. Quote, and I hope he isn't one that has to testify against the people who carried out acts of seditious conspiracy and then live to see Donald Trump pardon those people. Now, the backlash on social media was pretty swift. One user saying, MSNBC just used DJ Daniel to attack President Trump. These people are sick and twisted. Rachel Maddow is foul. She couldn't leave the poor boy out of politics. What a great night for DJ Daniel. Pathetic Maddow needs to get over TDS. This also, there's many calling for their firing, but it was the father of DJ Daniel who said she needs, this was in reference to Rachel Maddow, she needs to shut her mouth if she has nothing nice to say. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Theodis Daniel? This lady didn't even serve time in the military. I was on the USS Kitty Hawk. She does not need to put her bad energy on us, meaning Rachel Maddow. Of course, DJ has stolen the heart of the nation. We're going to tell you about what happened yesterday with him. The White House, this is, again, Theodis Daniel, DJ's father, said the White House reached out to us and said that President Trump wants to meet DeVarge. They flew us out, and FBI agents picked us up at the airport. After being sworn in and meeting border czar Tom Homan, DJ and his dad were escorted to prime seats for Trump's speech. We sat next to Mr. Musk. The First Lady was in front of us, and Kash Patel was at my son's right shoulder. The First Lady was nice, sweet, down to earth. Mr. Elon shook hands with us. And the pictures are, I mean, there was, I don't know. It's sad that I want to say there wasn't a dry eye in the house, but there was on half the side. So he got sworn in as a Secret Service agent. His aunt saying, "I thought it was awesome for my nephew. He deserves it. I think that such an honor will help him to reach his goal. If you can accomplish it, you can accomplish anything." So what an amazing story. Miranda Devine from the New York Post saying that disgraceful Democrats callously politicizing DJ Daniel and Laken Riley and sunk to a new low in the process. This coming from Miranda Devine. Your thoughts? As Republicans applauded and DJ's face lit up, Trump asked for his new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service. Then that spontaneous hug that he gave Curran, who's normally stone-faced, could melt the coldest hearts. Oh, except for, and this is Miranda Devine's thought, and you can weigh in differently, the heartless Democrats scowling in the House, sitting on their hands, determined to act like sullen adolescents. Except for the Trump-deranged MSNBC hosts, Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow, whose putrid comments about the touching moment took their network to lows nobody thought possible. Their callous remarks are telling. They didn't see DJ as a suffering child, thrilled to achieve his dream, but as a partisan prop to bash Trump. Their first instinct is politics, and has always been this. We've talked about this extensively on the program. They couldn't pause for even a moment to get in touch with their humanity. Yet they will gush all day long about their compassion for the hypothetical downtrodden they supposedly are defending against cruel Trump. Yes, who at the end of that speech came off looking cruel? Very often they label Trump cruel. Who came off looking cruel and heartless and with no empathy? As Trump's press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, put in a scorched earth monologue, it's sad and frankly pathetic that Democrats and liberals in the legacy media continue to allow their hatred for the president to override their love of our country. Whew. And I don't want to go through every example because we've been talking about it extensively and we have so much more to get to. But it's time for Democrats to find a heart or they'll lose their country, she finishes with. Now, he did visit the Oval Office after being made an honorary Secret Service agent, that, of course, DJ Daniel. In a post yesterday, it showed a video showing DJ and his family in the Oval Office with Trump. DJ can be seen hugging Trump in the video. It's very touching. What a good-looking family, Trump says, is always his go-to. I have one more thing I got for you. A big hug, DJ says, as he walks over to hug Trump, who can be seen sitting at the Resolute desk. What an amazing story. And to think that your first thought when this happens is politics. How can we use this as a way to attack Trump? It's why the media is struggling so. By the way, if you didn't know, this is a little bit of tidbit because it's almost as if they thought this was just a show. It was reported that DJ has been sworn in as an honorary police officer at 821 agencies. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, to think politics when you see that. Now, Cory Booker said that during Trump's address, that Trump was blatantly lying in a mocking tone. I'm not sure what that means. Donald Trump has stopped stunning me. He doesn't surprise me anymore. This was on MSNBC, of course, of all places. And that's why I thought that was such a good point from the Democrat from Queens, who said, what was this all for? To look like children protesting the president, to not clap for DJ and others. What was this all for? For the most TikTok views to go viral on TikTok or to get a speaking slot on MSNBC? Well, it's starting to look like that. So Cory Booker said, Donald Trump has stopped stunning me. He doesn't surprise me anymore. But this was a lie that they've been perpetrating for months and has been so clearly debunked time and time again. That for him to bring this up in the speech when most of the people in the room on both sides of the aisle knew that that was a blatant lie, and he did it in a mocking tone. And that was when he was reading the Social Security fraud. You're not being hyperbolic in any way. This is a person who's trying to carry out what we've seen in the past. People trying to privatize Social Security or end the program or point to it as a problem we have in government, emblematic of the problem, when in reality it's a vital program that Americans have been paying into their entire life. Have you ever noticed, I know sometimes attention spans are short. Did you ever notice that it doesn't matter who the Republican is, that they're always trying to cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security? That's always a talking point from the Democrat. That is their first go-to because they know it makes so many people upset if it were to be the case. It is not, and I want to make that very clear, it is not the case. And we've got an example of that, and I've got it here. Yes, it's by Betsy McKay, and it's become so trite and so overused, but that's the knee-jerk reaction from the Democrat Party, is to suggest that this Republican X, is going after Social Security. So we're going to tell you about that when we come back. Just give you a little information on that, but we do have to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Keep those comments coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
The Big's website is here now, WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. A couple comments from viewers. Fred writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Fred. Where was Senator Fetterman on Tuesday evening? Seriously, where was he? Did he boycott, or was he one of those sitting glued to his seat? Either way, he missed an opportunity to be a leader of his party by simply standing up. Who knows how many fellow Democrats would have followed his example, maybe next time. I tried to look it up, Fred. I don't remember seeing him either. But if you see what he's saying, which is, the Democrats are starting to sound like a car alarm, loud and obnoxious, but no one's paying attention anymore. He said some other things as well, of seeming to be very disappointed. I even read an article from The Hill, and they have to, of course, at the end say, because of his Trump friendliness, many are questioning his motives. So just because he's willing to listen to the president, talk to the president, but I'm surprised. I don't believe he boycotted. I don't believe he would be one that just sat there. So I'm confused as you, Fred, and I can't find the answer to that. So if anybody saw him during the broadcast, saw him standing, clapping, or maybe just sitting there, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe he was just at a weird angle and it wasn't shown on camera. I don't know. I tried to look it up. I couldn't find it. Comment from a different viewer. Wasn't there something about Democrats dipping into Social Security to fund other agendas? This being about maybe 6 or 10 years ago. I think it was a little longer than that, but I do remember the story where it basically turned into like a general fund and that there was a big filing cabinet with a bunch of IOUs for the Social Security. So yes, but let me get into that. Let me use that to piggyback to Betsy McKay's piece saying, get ready to be bombarded with ghoulish ads warning about grandmothers dying and children denied needed cancer treatment. Quote, just to make billionaires like Elon Musk even richer. Yeah, you can write the ads yourself. The ads, paid for by a Democratic PAC, started running Monday. And Monday night, Democrats attended President Donald Trump's speech and held up panels with the message, Save Medicaid. It's demagoguery in full swing to combat Republican efforts to control federal spending on Medicaid and stabilize the national debt and the nation's debt. And that's why we know nothing would ever change, because they're fighting tooth and nail every change that Donald Trump is trying to make to cut out the waste, fraud, and corruption. So if they're fighting this hard, we know nothing would ever change if it was politics as normal with the Democrat Party, if Harris would have won. Governor Hochul is claiming House Republicans just voted to rip health care away from up to 1.8 million New Yorkers, all to bankroll giveaways for billionaires. She's good at reading the cliche talking points, isn't she? Representative Delia Ramirez from Chicago shrieks, people will die. These are lies. The needy are not going to lose their health care, and the demagogues know it. Truth is, congressional Republicans are finally sticking up for working people who resent covering the bills for healthy folks who refuse to work. To control Medicaid spending, Republicans are calling for a work requirement for able-bodied adults without children or an elderly dependent. Work overstates the toughness. Anyone who's employed for 80 hours a month or attends school, a training program, or drug recovery program and is low income will still be eligible for free care, just not moochers. When Medicaid was launched in 1965, it provided a medical safety net for children, young mothers, the disabled, and the elderly. But a decade ago, President Barack Obama and Congress expanded Medicaid to cover healthy working-age adults, whether they were willing to work or not. Representative Nancy Pelosi boasted that everyone should have the freedom to pursue their own happiness as a writer or whatever you want to do, even without having to hold down a job and pay for your health insurance. That's hardly a safety net. Pelosi's promise made working people into patsies, supporting the freeloaders. House Speaker Mike Johnson tweeted last week, Medicaid is for single mothers with small children who are just trying to make it. It's not for a 29-year-old male sitting on their couch playing video games. We will find those guys and we will send them back to work. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that work requirements would save $140 billion over the next decade. Not chump change. It's almost a tenth of the Republicans' total budget reduction goal. Just as important, requiring work indicates that at least some Washington lawmakers are in sync with working-class Americans who want to be generous to the needy but loathe spongers. Weeks before Congress began debating how to curb Medicaid spending, state legislators in Ohio, Arkansas, Arizona, and Indiana were already sending requests to the Trump administration to approve state-initiated work requirements. Several states tried this during Trump's first term, only to be sued in federal court or rebuffed by President Joe Biden's Medicaid administrators. The debates in these state capitals show how polarizing work requirements are. Die-hard lefties argue that the more people who are insured, the better, never mind who's paying. But Republicans say a government program should encourage the dependent to become independent and self-supporting. They also argue that people who work are healthier than people who don't. This is fully supported by copious scientific data cited in the American Behavioral Science. Not working and the isolation and low self-esteem it produces can literally kill you. As for Hochul's bombast, the changes to Medicaid are only being made to bankroll billionaires. The truth is the current federal spending is unsustainable per the nonpartisan General Accounting Office. So it says here, before 2017, the U.S. was losing 10 multi-international corporate headquarters a year to countries with lower corporate taxes. After Trump's 2017 tax cuts, the exodus stopped. Renewing those corporate tax cuts is essential to save American jobs, possibly yours. When you hear the demagogues oppose Medicaid, cuts. Think of the guy sitting on the couch while you go to work to pay his health care tab. Don't fall for the phony sob stories. That's Betsy McKay. I know that's been a very important part of the protests that we've seen, on whether it's during the speech, or during the protests that we've seen locally against Trump and Musk. All right, we've got a lot more to get to. This hour is going very quickly. I see some comments coming in. Keep them coming in. We'll take a short break. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. We had a lot come in during that last segment. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. So the geniuses at CNN and MSNBC think that President Trump would have hurt DJ's chances to survive cancer. DJ was diagnosed in 2018 with his cancer. Who was the president in 2018? Very good point. Thank you very much. Comment, and the answer is Trump. Comment from a different viewer. The Democrat Party officials are the gift that just keep on giving. They don't even see how they are separating themselves from normal, everyday people. They won't put everybody in their own little world. Who won't put everybody in their own little world through race, religion, sex? They didn't even see or could tell how not showing emotions and feelings for people that had lost lives or had a child survive cancer is being human, showing emotions, being human. They didn't even see that, essentially. Democrats do not care in any way, shape, or form about people unless they vote for them. If you don't vote for them, you are not worth their time, and they proved it. Thank you, viewer. Comment from a different viewer, this coming from Mark. Why would the Democrats think we would believe their words or their ads against Trump when they covered up Biden's health issues and they misled Americans for years? That's a very good point, Mark, and I think that's why the mainstream media is having such credibility problems at this point. I see that, ABC's letting off some more people, news layoffs at ABC News, and they're also shutting down 538 as part of the sweeping layoffs at the network. As parent company Disney continues broader restructuring and looks to cut about 200 positions or 6% of its workforce. So that's the same to what you were saying, Mark. When you have no credibility any longer because you covered up the mental decline of Joe Biden for 4 years, it's going to be tough to come back from that. And you see some of these organizations trying to make moves to try to come back, and I think most people are saying too little, too late. Ken writes in, everything that the Democrats are doing to damage the Trump administration is because he is threatening to eliminate the ability for them to become wealthy by stealing from the taxpayers. The only tools they have in their tool chest to convince the sheeple that Republicans are bad are lying, demonizing, and division. Most voters, even sheeple voters, don't like the Democrats' policies. That's why they have to mislead about their policies, and that's why very often a Democrat candidate will run as a more conservative candidate until, of course, they get in there. So you raise a very good point. That's historically true, not deniable. Okay, a little bit of, an update on Doge. I'm just looking at the time. The Elon Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency has terminated the lease at the Obama Presidential Library site, although it's unlikely to impact operations there since it is due to shutter later this year and move to a new location. The library is located at the Hoffman Estates in the northwest of Chicago and is separate to the sprawling 19.3-acre Obama Presidential Center near Jackson Park in the south side of Chicago, which is under construction and is expected to be completed next year. The site at the Hoffman Estates is run by the National Archives and Records Administration, as are all presidential libraries, while the Obama Presidential Center is a private venture being overseen by the Obama Foundation. Doge this week updated its list of nearly 750 federal lease terminations, totaling around 9.6 million square feet in size, which include the Hoffman Estates site. The agency, which has been tasked by President Trump to cut wasteful federal spending, said the terminations will save the taxpayers $468 million in lease savings. The Doge website did not provide a timetable for the closures, although a NARA spokesperson told Fox that Hoffman Estates Library was scheduled to close in late fiscal year 2025 and move to College Park in Maryland. The government's fiscal 2025 runs through September 30th. Maybe just a little bit more optics there than anything else. Couple of quick things just to highlight before I get to my next topic. We do have State Senator Tom O'Mara on the program tomorrow, so if you have any questions for him, please get those to me ahead of time. I'd really appreciate it. That will be on tomorrow's program. We'll be reading your comments as well here when we come back, so we only have a few minutes before we have to take our last break. So get those comments in so I can read them before the end of the program. Big news coming out late last night. President Trump is set to sign an executive order to eradicate the Department of Education as early as today. This is according to a report. Trump will use his executive powers, this is allegedly, we haven't heard any specifics, to direct Education Secretary Linda McMahon to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Education Department based on the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law. This is according to the Wall Street Journal, which viewed a draft of the order. Quote, the experiment of controlling American education through federal programs and dollars and the unaccountable bureaucrats those programs and dollars support has failed our children, our teachers, and our families. The draft order, which was labeled as pre-decisional, the order which supports the president's pledge to have the federal agency shuttered, has been in the works since Trump's transition. Now, the White House has not responded to a comment on this. McMahon, who was confirmed along party lines Monday, cited the commander-in-chief's upcoming move in an email to staffers mere hours after she was approved to head the department, saying she would send education back to the states. And as it's been said from the beginning about Linda McMahon, Trump put her in there to put herself out of a job. So we could see an executive order as soon as today to abolish the Department of Education. We will look forward to the news coverage of that and the political ads that will come from that as well. But we got to take a short break. Get your last minute comments in as we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Discover a path to receiving an exceptional educational experience with all costs covered. That's our mission. Find your future at Milton Hershey School.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Corning, Elmira, Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen. Big Fox, 10 p.m. news, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. and visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer: the mainstream media can have layoffs, but the federal government can't? What's wrong with this scenario? You're right. How they act as if some of these agencies are just so sacred. And I always point back to that article that Doge has now entered the IRS. Is IRS sacred to you? I don't know. If it is, let me know. I know tariffs are the big talk. Well, the Department of Education will be big talk if that breaks. But the tariff, this was an interesting exclusive coming from the New York Post. But toy makers with U.S. manufacturing facilities are getting slammed with orders as the industry scrambles to negotiate a slew of stiff tariffs from the Trump administration. MGA Entertainment, which makes Bratz and LOL surprise dolls, also owns the 56-year-old Little Tykes brand, which manufactures larger indoor and outdoor toys in Ohio. They have been getting slammed with orders after these tariffs came into effect. Comment from Fred. The Department of Education and the New York Hall Act, even when the ideas don't work, they still don't go away. Thank you, Fred. There's a piece that you may, as we're running out of time here, I'm going to go kind of quick, so bear with me. Kind of just an interesting piece. We don't have time to get to it, but maybe something it may pique your interest. Trump 2.0 borrows a ton from Richard Nixon, but the 37th president's playbook also has big risks. Niall Ferguson says, "Congratulations, Donald Trump. You are officially Richard Nixon's revenge." Interesting. I would love to hear your thoughts on it and your take on that. All right, last couple things. In New York City's mayor's race, another comment from a different viewer. It's not what can your country do for you, it's what you can do for your country, of course. JFK. Andrew Cuomo has, I hate to end the program on the mayoral race, but he has the lead still. If the primary were held today, 31% of registered New York City Democrats would back Cuomo, followed by just 11% who said they'd support Adams, according to that new Quinnipiac poll. Andrew Cuomo is holding a breakfast fundraiser being thrown by more than 100 powerful women backing his mayoral run. We're not going to go through every single name here. We kind of understand the political moves he's making there. According to the invitation, individual tickets are going for $250, and it runs up to $10,000 to be a chairperson of the event. Ooh. But there's coming out of the New York State of Politics, they say Democrats are shying away from criticizing Andrew Cuomo, which is a signal that he'll probably be successful in his race. Governor Hochul saying, "I have to go forward in light of where we are today and deal with whatever the voters decide to deal with." We mentioned Gillibrand saying, "I've known Andrew Cuomo for decades. He has a lot of talents as an executive. He's been a very strong governor and done very good things for New York." But then she did go on to say he made numerous mistakes, bad mistakes. So they're all distancing themselves now from criticizing him. That's the state of the Democrat Party. We heard last week the Hill even suggesting that people are thinking he could run in 2028, Andrew Cuomo. Keep that in mind of where they're headed, the Democrat Party. All right, one last comment from a viewer. "I can't wait to see those trees that line Market Street to start budding." Me either. Of course, referencing the roof cam. Soon enough. Be patient, folks. Soon enough, they'll be budding. But I appreciate your comment because I couldn't agree more. Well, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everyone who joined us. All the comments, really a different array of comments. Really appreciate it. Tomorrow on the program, New York State Senator Tom O'Mara. So make sure you tune in for that. Get your questions in. For the next, you got 24 hours. Get your questions in for Senator Tom O'Mara. All right, that does it for today. We'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, starting at 6 a.m. I look forward to it already.